Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to rebuild confidence with your horse. I've had just in a couple days, a couple people asking how to do that. Maybe you've had an accident on your horse and something bad happened for you and the horse. You're trying to figure out how to move forward from there. Maybe you have a horse that has a history, like this horse, 8 years old, bucked a lot of people off, has that trigger kind of built into him. There's not a lot of confidence there in him or the rider handler. Any of those type of situations. So this is not a method how to fix that. This is just one thing, one way that I can help my horse improve their confidence in me. And today specifically, that's going to be the gap between what I do when I'm in the saddle on that horse, in close contact with that horse, versus the things that I do on the ground. How do I bridge that gap? Because there's a very big gap there. We don't communicate under saddle by body language or signals. We are using contact, whether it's from our hands, from our feet, the weight of our body. All that's contact. That's not feel, it is feel and contact. It's not visual signals and things like that, versus what a lot of our groundwork is. And it's very disconnected, more at liberty, I guess, from direct contact with us. That leaves a horse with a greater comfort zone. And it's a way we can start. I call it the communication dialogue with our horse, but it's not where it ends before I get up in the saddle. So I have to kind of break it down into three parts. My more at liberty groundwork, where my horse is distant from me. Then I go into my close contact groundwork. Then I go into my saddle work. So I'm going to show you that little bit today. The first thing is the buttons that I want to have under saddle. I'm going to do the best job I can to make those buttons work on the ground with the same kind of contact that I would have under saddle. So obviously the desensitizing things, the video I posted yesterday about making sure my horse is comfortable with my body next to its body in any position around that horse, that's a very important first step. Then moving into that, I want to be able to move my horse and shape my horse and cue my horse with contact from the ground with forward movement. A lot of things you can do when a horse is standing still, and if the tension's building, you're just going to have a time bomb effect. When that horse moves, they're going to blow up. So a lot of these things are going to involve me moving my horse, but very close contact. So I'll show you. So here's my go button, okay? Right here where that stirrup lands on my horse's belly, I want to be able to have my horse move around my body, keep contact with their rib cage, and not have them tighten up, not have them kind of blow out of my space to where I can't keep my hand on them, and just move nice and soft around me, okay? A lot of times the horse's shoulder, and we talked about some of these more sensitive points yesterday. So there on his shoulder, it's a little bit more sensitive, and I'm just going to have him move forward when I kind of put my fingers into his shoulder. Good. And then I'll just pet him to a stop. So when he moves off of it, then I will go to petting. So I'm kind of poking and petting and poking and petting and poking and petting. So I'm not making my horse sensitive in those areas, more sensitive. And I also don't want him dull either. I want him to learn to move, but it's okay. I'm not hurting you. It's not a pressure you need to fear or brace against or explode because it was applied. Same thing here in the hip. So he keeps kind of hiding behind me, so I'm going to push him out here. Okay, so right here in the hip, obviously I want to be able to pet my horse there, but then I also want to be able to move him and yield that hindquarter. As soon as I kind of poke him, he kind of goes, ooh, and he stiffens up, lifts his back, and braces a little bit. Well, I want to ask him to move until he relaxes, but he's not panicking and reacting either, and then just pet him to a stop, or petting when he stops. So again, I'm teaching him to move and then relax, and then move and then relax. Eventually, I want him to move relaxed, okay? But sometimes I'm gonna have to go back and forth until he learns, oh, I can still move, still give to that pressure, and I can be relaxed. Forward. Good. Now, a lot of your horses are not gonna do this. They're not gonna move forward and stay moving forward and also not run out of your reach, okay? So get your horse to the point where you can do that. I guarantee if you get your horse that comfortable, you know, and if they're comfortable with you right here, they're comfortable with you grabbing that offside stirrup and throwing it around, and they're comfortable moving off of your body language, well, not your body language, but you know, you applying pressure with your body, they're comfortable moving off of that, and they're not tight, and they're not reactive, and they are relaxed, you're gonna be fine, okay? Yeah, you might still have some little issues to work through under saddle, little unconfidences to kind of build and work through, but you've got a really, really good, you've increased your chances and your odds greatly by bridging that gap from distant groundwork to all of a sudden being right on top of my horse and everything touching him, right? It's a big gap there that we have to learn how to kind of bridge and transition that communication from me being here and telling my horse what to do, me being on top of them not really being able to see me but feel me now, and now I'm communicating with them, okay? Big difference for a horse to process. So we need to help them kind of bridge that gap. And this is one of the biggest ways that I do it here. And then obviously all my mount and dismount, sometimes I'll flex them to a stop, sometimes I'll flex them to keep their hip moving. But that is, in my opinion, using all those pressure points with physical contact and helping my horse to learn to move relaxed and soft and not reactive and bracy. That is the biggest gap that I don't feel like ever really gets bridged. That's why you see all these 2-year-old colts go blow up when somebody gets on and they can have quote unquote perfect groundwork. Because they haven't bridged the gap. There's no reason a horse should understand what's going on when you jump up on top of them after only having taught them to respond to you know, through that halter at a distance on the ground, and maybe a little bit up close, so you throwing the saddle on and off and cinching it up and all that. But then you're going to get on them and hope to God everything goes well. Okay, it's not. You know, and again, fixing problem horses and horses that have trauma from past experiences, that's even more difficult and more dangerous typically. And it's going to leave longer lasting effects if things go bad. You know, a horse bucks somebody off one time, you know, they might not pick up that much from that experience and harbor a lot of fear and stress from that. Twice, it's going to be more. 3 times, it's going to be more. And then it's going to start to turn into a behavior pattern, and that's kind of where this horse came from, and a lot of other horses that I've worked with. And that takes more time, for one, but it also takes skilled time. You can't just do the wrong thing all the time, every day, and you know, expect that it's going to leave you with positive results. You've got to have educated, skilled, quality time put in on a consistent basis over a long period of time in order to see that horse really change over time. And I was explaining to someone yesterday, the only difference between teaching a young horse these things and helping and rebuilding a young horse is they're not bringing 5 or 6 years of horse-human interaction experience to the table. The horse that's bringing its past to the table, you've got more to work through. You don't have a different horse to work with necessarily. Every horse is different, but you don't have any less of a horse. That they're not less able to learn at 8 years old versus 3 years old. Now, that 3-year-old is going to be a little more willing to learn simply because that 3-year-old probably still has a need to feel safe and secure in that herd dynamic. Whereas an 8-year-old horse, you know, they are not as insecure and needy for that herd dynamic. You know, so they're just going to be mentally a little less willing to change their life based on whatever you're telling them to do. But they're not any less able to learn, is my point. So anyway, hopefully that helps somebody out there.